Welcome to Actions and Limits. My name is Justin Atherton. I'm the Peak Performance Consultant for Confidence Unchained. With me as always is Paul Fortune. Paul is a mindset coach and the founder of A Call to Action. And together, we make Actions and Limits. Welcome to the show, the podcast where we talk about the actions we can take and the limits we create. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single interview. Go ahead and like us or follow us on Instagram, Facebook. What else are we on, Paul?
Spotify, iTunes, the whole bit.
All your favorite podcast platforms, whatever one you use out there. Follow us, subscribe, make sure you're getting updated because we've got some great interviews coming up. And we got another one today. Paul, how crazy is it that we get to interview our 8th grade teacher?
It is crazy. I happen to live close to him, and I kind of just bumped into him from time to time. So, I would stop and talk with them. Actually played golf with him, several months ago, and told him about the podcast that you and I did. And, and obviously he remembered you, Justin, as well, and your sister, Megan. And then I said to him, I go, hey, if you ever want to come on our podcast, if you have something to promote or a message that you want to get out to the world, by all means, just hit me up. And so he did. And here we are interviewing him.
Yeah. So I'm excited. I'm excited for Jim to come out. I'm gonna have some issues with that one. I may have a Mr. Stutz slip here and there, but we'll see if I can push through. But I gotta say, Paul, like your camera, for those of you watching, this is what's going. This is the best I've ever seen you. Like normally I'm looking at you through some kind of LA fog, but like now, like you're clear as day. Like I'm like, wow, there he is. The smog in LA has lifted because of COVID. So then now Paul is visible.
I got a tip from another podcast host that said, hey, take your lamp and put it behind your laptop, and it'll give you a good light. And I said, okay, let me try it out. And here we are. And now, I look like $1 million.
Look like $1 million. No longer the purple haze, blurring you out. So anybody that's not watching on YouTube, tune in. If you're just listening on Spotify or Apple or iTunes or
we thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you for all that. But there's another way to listen or watch us. Hop on our YouTube channel and you get to see Paul's smiling face. And now it's less foggy. glad I can see you better, Paul.
Thank you.
So let's go ahead and bring our guest, man. I'm excited to talk to Jim. I haven't talked with him in many years, but Jim Stutz. In 2012 and 13, Jim experienced several life-changing events in a very short amount of time. His marriage ended, his father died, and his 20-year teaching career came to a rancorous and unsettling end. Jim believed then, as he does now, that everything and everyone in our lives happens for a reason. And he set out to discover just what there was for him to learn from these painful experiences. What Jim learned throughout this process was how, for the first time in his life, to honor and to be his true self. This led Jim to engage in passions he had long ago abandoned, writing music, for one. For 2 years, Jim wrote a weekly essay about his journey. Those essays have been compiled into a collection that Jim plans to self-publish. Jim also signed himself up for guitar lessons and soon after started writing song lyrics. Jim wrote a full album's worth of lyrics exploring some of the most impactful people and events in his life. Those songs have recently been recorded and will be released on Jim's first album, Love and Dreams. So everybody, let's welcome Jim Stutz to the show. All right, everyone, welcome Jim Stutz to the Actions and Limits podcast. Jim, it's really good to have you. I haven't seen you in a long time, so I'm glad to catch up with you, Jim.
As I am with you guys. Yeah, it's always a great honor for me, for anybody that's been a student of mine in the past, that we still have any kind of contact and know what's going on in each other's lives.
It's going to be hard for me not to call you Mr. Stutz. So if it comes out, just me saying Jim it's tough for me to get that out there. I'm like,
I understand.
I can't do it. So I'm going to do my best to not call you Mr. Stutz throughout the interview. But again, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
So what have you been up to? What have you been going on? I know you were, teaching, and now you're in this transition to where you're doing music now. So how did all of that come about?
Well, without getting into all the details, about 5 years ago, I was coming out of a number of life-changing events, having left teaching, going through a divorce, and my dad died, and all this happened like within a year. So there were 3 really big things that happened in a short amount of time, and really shook you up. When you go through any one of those things is enough, but going through that many in a row, and it really caused me to take stock of like where I was at that point in my life, and what it was that I determined I wanted my life to be like from that point forward. And so after going through some healing, I just sort of started to go on an inward journey, and read a lot of books, listened to a lot of audio, a lot of spiritual direction and things of that nature, and started to really get in touch with parts of myself that had yet to really be expressed throughout my life. Things that had always been there that wanted to be expressed, but I just couldn't quite get a handle on them. And one thing led to another. I started pursuing this passion of mine in music, which I've had since I was 10 or 11 years old as a fan. I've always just loved listening to all different kinds of music, going to concerts, talking to musicians, friends, and things like that. And started taking guitar lessons, which is something I'd wanted to do since I was like 12 or 13 years old. And then that led to my starting to write song lyrics, and writing has always been a passion of mine. And I'd bring them into our lessons, and the instructor really liked the lyrics, and he'd help me put them to music, because at the time I had no clue how to do that. And just kept writing them until I had like this whole album worth of material, which ended up being very therapeutic, because it was about a lot of the roots of the events that led up to those losses I was talking about. And, culminated in us recording those songs and releasing them as an album. So,
Jim, I do want to get into your album, but before I get into your album, I want to talk to you about when you were at USC and studying. You were in film school at USC, if I'm correct, right?
Yeah, film production. Mm-hmm.
Okay. At that time in your life, where did you see your career going? Was it you wanted to be a writer in film, or where was it going to take you?
When I went to film school, was the idea of being a writer-director. Again, with the writing always being the first thing that was most important to me. And when I was at USC in the production program anyway, I mean, you could be a writing major, but I wanted to be a writer-director, so I wanted to be in the production program, which I was. But there really wasn't much emphasis on writing, at least at that time, in that program. So that was a little disappointing. And I did learn through the projects we did at school, as well as some professional projects I was able to work on outside of there, that the actual production work wasn't really my thing. So after after film school is when I started teaching, because I have always had a passion for education as well. And I figured I would continue to work on writing outside of my job of teaching, which I did. I studied privately with a screenwriter in a small group for several years. And I learned a lot of that, and I actually was able to use a lot of that in my teaching with helping to teach literature and derive a lot more content from the stories than what you would normally get just from a basic reading.
Yeah, I'm trying to think back. There's so many things I remember when Paul was talking about, you doing an album, and I was like, when Paul and I were listening to it, he said he was taking notes about how it was making him feel, and I was like, I remember Mr. Stutz doing that with us in class. I remember that we had a music section. I don't remember ever anyone else having that, a music portion of the grade, but we always had, I don't know if it was 30 minutes, an hour, I don't know how long it was, but we had a portion of listening to music, and you literally make us write down how it made us feel. Mm-hmm. And I probably remember at the time going, what the heck? What does the music make me feel? But now, being, an adult, being more mature and understanding how much that music really influences like how we feel on a daily basis, and like what we do. Like we can really, we had a guest come on, several months ago, Bill Protzman. He really talked about this idea of using music to really enhance the mood that you're in already to help you express it. So I thought that was a really interesting idea. I don't know if you've used it in that way or thought about it, like the way you wrote your album almost, right?
Right. Yeah, I have actually come across that idea. You're talking about intentionally using a piece of music to enhance the way you feel. I remember years ago, somebody had loaned me these old Tony Robbins tapes, and he had talked about that. It's like, find a song that gets you really pumped up, and like just have it around in your car or anywhere you can get to it, and on a daily basis when you need a jolt. So I think that's a very powerful aspect of music, definitely, I think probably more than any other art form, it has an immediate emotional connection with the audience member, whatever the emotion happens to be of that particular piece of music. It's just really evocative. And so, yeah, as I was going through the process of writing these songs, and like I said, when I wrote the lyrics I did by myself, and I had a definite idea of the emotions contained in each song. And as we would work together, my partner and I, with putting music to them, I definitely was cognizant of that. I was very aware of how the music should sound to go with it. The music had to enhance it and underscore, just like a film composer might do with images on a screen.
Sure.
Like the music is heightening the emotion those characters are feeling, and that was the approach I wanted the music to take on this record.
Looking at your album, Jim, it looks like it just follows kind of your life. Kind of you tell the story. Each song, it's in chronological. What is it? What's the word I'm looking for? Yeah, order. Following your whole life. I mean, ending it with Second Chance. Mm-hmm. And I have to tell you, the first emotion that comes to my mind when I listen to your album is the feeling of uncomfortableness that I felt. I mean, you really laid it on the line emotionally with your lyrics and your life. And I want to talk to you about your third track, The Lake, especially. Mm-hmm. Okay, because what I was feeling, or what I was sensing through this track, what was there contemplation of suicide in this track?
No, not suicide, but definitely wanting to escape a life that was very painful and unfulfilling and isolating. And escape not meaning in a suicidal sense, but just like, I wish there was a better place I could be in.
Yeah, I mean that one really took me. It was. I mean, the lyrics are so extremely powerful, and the descriptions in that song really put me in a spot. Really, put me kind of like in this uncomfortableness
Hmm.
of feeling your pain as a boy, which was gosh, it must have been really tough going through what you went through. And then another one I want to talk to you about is Love and Dreams.
Hmm.
To me, it was a sense with your father that maybe did he want to be an actor or something, and it never panned out for him, and he's kind of telling you kind of what could have been type of way. I mean, that's what I kind of sense from that.
You got it right on the head. He always used to tell me how much he wanted to be an actor, and just felt like when he was younger, no one really saw that part of him or encouraged it. And when he was adolescent or teenager, and we were talking about like the 50s and early 60s, and um, even today, people that want to go into creative things for a living are often discouraged. But I mean, I guess back then it was even considered less respectable. So he was not encouraged in that way. And it was something that sort of like followed him around his whole life. And he did later in life make some effort to do some like community theater things, and try to get his SAG card and all that. And he was good. He was good at acting, but it was just something he never could quite get his hands around. And so, yeah, it's amazing that you picked that up in that song. So I don't think I explicitly say that, but yeah, that was definitely a part of his dynamic.
Did you ever want to become an actor because of that?
I think at some point, just fleetingly, I think it had more to do with wanting attention, somebody pay attention to me in some way.
Isn't that what all actors want?
Yeah, of course. I think it is. And I think, that's what all human beings want to some extent, is to be seen and acknowledged. And when I guess for an actor or songwriter or any other artist, I think it's maybe, things that they didn't get when they were younger, and it manifests in some form of creative expression.
So on that vein, like where do you see this going? Like what are you looking to be acknowledged for?
What I hope with this is that as more people get to hear it, that they'll relate to it in some way. I mean, maybe not every song, of course, but I think that's what good art does. Hopefully, is it connects with an audience member and makes them feel like they're not the only one that has had a particular kind of experience, and they can say, "Oh, I understand what he's talking about there. I had that similar situation in my life," and it can make them feel more less lonely, I guess. Like somebody understands what their experiences are,
Yeah.
and has found a way to communicate that.
Yeah, that can be a tough thing to try to get out, and like you said, when someone listens to that song and go, "Oh, I'm not the only one," right? So that can be
Yeah.
pretty powerful, and if you can deliver that message to someone, even if you affect that one person, Paul and I say it all the time. If we can affect one person, with our show, with our message, hey, we did our job for the day.
Mm-hmm.
So I assume that's a similar thing for you, Jim.
Absolutely. And, one of the things I'm hoping to do with it too, in order to facilitate that, is whenever we're allowed to do so again, is to do some live performances, even if it's just coffee shops with 10 people in them or something.
Sure.
And this album has been released online. It's on Spotify and Pandora and all those things, Amazon. So, I mean, I don't know what the odds are anybody's going to just stumble across it, but I will continue to try to find ways to let other people know that it's out there and let them hear it and make their own you know, what determination, whether they like it or they connect with it.
Sure.
Most of your album has a certain tone to it, except for one track, "A Place to Call Home," and I assume that's when you first met your wife.
Yeah, it's definitely about that. Mm-hmm.
And you did a duet with somebody else who had a beautiful voice. By the way, who was that?
Her name is Anne Louise Thace. The studio where we recorded was owned by a friend of mine, is owned by a friend of mine, and I told him I had this song that was a duet that needed a female voice. And after he had listened to some of the songs and got an idea of what my voice was, he, you know, looked through his little magic book and found her name, and he said, "I think she's going to work for you." And we brought her in, and she just nailed it. Yeah, she was awesome.
Yeah, I think that was my favorite song on the album. I think you guys really complimented each other well, and I really enjoyed that one.
Thank you. Yeah, I do too, just because I love to hear her voice.
Right?
So good.
Yeah, I just want to say that, you know, like I said, that was a track that stood up to me because it was as a different tone than the rest of the album itself. And hopefully that's not a metaphor of your life where there was only just one track that was pleasant. I hope that there was many other moments in your life that were you know, great too.
Yeah, you're right. In terms of like the upbeatness and brightness of that song, it stands out from the others. But this, I mentioned learning about storytelling and screenwriting. I use that sort of story structure to put these songs in order. So the second side, if you will, songs 6 through 10, like are more of an upward arc. The first song, "Love and Dreams," the title track, the first song of the second side, while it is maybe more somber in tone and execution, is, if you look at what it's saying, is about the love that did grow between me and my dad. So that was, you know, a good development, a positive development, and then the falling in love with my wife. And the song after that is about our breakup. And then the next song, though, is about the resolution and learning to forgive and put things to rest. So while it's not an upbeat song, it is a positive development. And then the final track of "Second Chance" also is a positive statement, even though it is a very sort of, the way I always thought of it was sort of as a meditative meditation.
Was it hard for your mom to listen to this?
I don't know. I intentionally didn't listen to it with her. When I gave it to her to listen to, I actually gave it to her with a little letter saying, you know, if it was difficult for her or if anything upset her, you know, let me know and we'll talk about it. Because obviously whenever any kind of artist draws on their own life, and especially people that are still alive, you run the risk of hurting somebody or offending them. And so I don't know what her experience was of actually listening to it, but she did contact me after she listened to it and said she was very moved by it.
So it seems that there's a theme when people have dealt with trauma or very difficult times in their lives, that it either, you know, drives you deeper into that, or you come out the other side with new skills and new, you know, insights into how you live your life. So what are some of the major ones that you've taken away over the years that you're using right now to implement in living your life in a different way?
That's a great question, Justin. How does one answer that? One way of approaching it is through the types of material I was studying coming out of those things, was the idea that, you know, everything that occurs in your life occurs for you and not just to you. So that when you look at it that way, you can say, well, okay, what was that for? What was I supposed to learn from that? And how can I, as you say, come out of it more fully formed and better balanced with different skills? So I deeply believed in that. There has to be some good reason for the things we go through that are unpleasant. Otherwise, I mean, how grim is that if if we don't think of it that way?
Sure.
And so I just started, like I said, going on this inward journey and exploring these sort of patterns in my life and looking at, okay, what am I supposed to be learning along the way? And sometimes I needed to be hit over the head more than once before I finally saw, oh, that's what I'm supposed to be doing. And so it was that, just starting from that approach, I think that all of these things, while they might be unpleasant, must have a higher purpose.
So it's really like seeing that silver lining and figuring out, like, how do I come out of this better? What can I learn from this process to move forward and be happier, right?
Absolutely.
Are you writing songs now?
I just finished writing a whole second album. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Oh, that's great.
Now, is this album about your life, or is this, maybe more third person type work, or?
It's sort of a combination. Whereas the first album doesn't center around my father necessarily, or me and my father, but, the title track is about us. And that relationship was much more straightforward. So the second album is dealing with my relationship with my mother. And in some cases, I'm sort of having to fill in gaps by creating events or characters. But I'm sort of tracing the arc of her life, and then I'm sort of a secondary character in it. So I'm trying to sort of explore what might have created her life the way it is, starting with her upbringing and some events in her life that were very momentous that might have caused her to go one way or the other.
So the way that you actually talk about the songs that you're writing, you can hear the influence from film and the movies. It's almost like you're writing these songs visually.
Yeah, I think that's true. Sometimes that's more conscious on my part than others. But I think the best songs, or poems, they do conjure up powerful images. And when I can do that, I do try to do it without it being becoming more important than the overall song. Like, I don't want it to draw too much attention to itself. But yeah, I do try to draw images, and maybe that's all those years I spent studying screenwriting and doing that thing just sort of comes out that way.
You talked about your mom's upbringing. So are you going to do like kind of an interview with her to find out, the stuff that happened obviously before you were born to put this all together, or you already did that, or?
Yeah, I haven't done that. Over the years, talking to her about various things, or talking to her siblings about things they went through as children, have been the primary basis I've gone on. And when there's things that I don't know what happened, that's where I've sort of speculated and created a situation or a character that might have gone through something that would explain what that was.
So Jim, do you have a title for the new album yet?
Yeah, it's called The Healing, Healing, Healing. Because the journey that album hopefully will take you on is the development of this woman, young girl, into a woman, getting married, having children, the disappointments and the successes, and the healing is more a reference to my relationship with her, which from my point of view over most of our lives has been difficult. And I've always wanted it to be closer, and it's getting that way much more than it ever has been over the last few years, and I'm very grateful for that. And so I see a lot of the songs on this album helping to sort of bring that to a culmination of finally arriving at that place of peace and relationship that I've always wanted.
Well, Jim, I'm excited to hear the new album. When does it come out?
Well, we just released the first one, Love and Dreams. The second one, the songs, because I guess of the experience I had making the first one, the songs for the second album are already much more developed than the first ones were at this stage.
Okay.
So I could see it, being ready to record within a couple months of me and my songwriting partner rehearsing. But I wouldn't want to flood another, flood the market, so to speak.
I get it.
But it could be recorded soon. So maybe within a year.
But that's got to be an exciting project to be working on, in the meantime, and knowing that you're working towards that goal, right?
Absolutely. It's exciting. And when I'm working on these things, whether it's by myself at home, working on the lyrics, trying to find a melody, or rehearsing them with my partner, John, and finally recording them there. Yeah, it really is like sort of bringing something to life that didn't exist before, which is a really powerful experience.
That's great, Jim. So how else can our listeners get a hold of you, or like, do you have a website, or do you have the best way for them to check out your music and your content?
At the moment, I don't have a website. Okay. The album is on Spotify, so anybody can listen to it there for free. If they wanted to purchase a CD, I'm the only one that has the physical CDs right now. CD Baby is a company that distributed the CDs and distributed it to all the digital platforms. Sure. They will sell CDs, but right now, because of COVID, they won't let us send them any.
Got it.
Yeah. So I've got CDs here, but I don't know if you're interested just in the digital platform. It's on Spotify, it's on Amazon, it's on iTunes or Apple Music, Google Play, and even on YouTube. So all the usual suspects.
Right.
I got one last question I want to ask on my end here, Jim. Uh-huh. Obviously it's been several years since you were my teacher, but I remember one lesson that you hammered to us all the time. And that was, if you believe in something and you put in the work, you can achieve whatever that is. Do you still believe in that message?
I do. I think it's best achieved when whatever it is you're working toward is really aligned with who you are as a person. I think a lot of the times we have goals that aren't necessarily aligned with who we are as a person. We have goals that the world says, hey, are admirable. Like I want to play second base for the Yankees or something. But if I don't have the innate talent and drive for that, then it's probably not the right goal for me to be pursuing. So I think when you get a good sense of who you are and you pay attention to your talents and gifts and the things that really pull you in that direction, then I think, yes, you can definitely find a place for yourself in that realm, whatever it happens to be.
I like that. It's almost find your passion, not what you think you're supposed to do or what your parents want you to do or what you think is going to make you the most money. It's find your passion and go do that.
I think I just did a video on that.
Did you?
Yeah.
Then we're in agreement.
There, we all agree. Find your passion. Everybody out there, whatever you're doing out there, if you don't like it, go find something else that you love to do, regardless of the money or what other people are going to think about it. Right?
Yes. Well, be open to that passion being something you never even thought it could be.
I like that. That's some really great insight, Jim. Well, we like to wrap up the show with these last two questions. We'd like to ask our guests, because of the Actions and Limits podcast, with the title in mind, what would you say is one action that we can implement right now that could really make a powerful difference in our lives?
For me, that would be learning to get comfortable in silence,
Mm.
because I think when you can just sit in silence, whether you call it meditation or anything else, you turn down the noise in life, and there's obviously a ton of it. That's when you can start to hear that passion inside of yourself start to speak to you. But until you take the time to really sit quietly and just listen, then I don't think you're going to hear it. So that would be what I would say. Get comfortable with just taking time out to sit in quiet.
I like that. And it gives you a chance to listen to what someone else is talking about rather than worrying about what you're going to say. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I like those different aspects you talk about, whether it's meditation or just taking some time for yourself to really just listen to what's going on inside your own head. I like that. So the other side of that is these limits that we impose on ourselves, that are these fake things that we create.
Mm-hmm.
What is one of the biggest limits that you see that people impose upon themselves that we need to get rid of right away?
The first thing that comes to my mind is that we might give credence right away to ideas we hear through media or friends or things like that, without entertaining that there are multiple other versions of that or points of view. And we tend to lock in pretty quickly, I think, to one source of information or point of view that kind of feels like it fits us. But we don't take the time often to at least keep our minds open to other people's perspectives. And when you don't have the openness to listen to other ideas, obviously you're going to limit severely what's possible for you.
Yeah.
So I would say something in that realm of, not keeping yourself stuck in just one way of perceiving things.
I like that idea. And I think it's very relevant in this time period that we're living in. People are very stuck in their own point of views, and they're not willing to listen to other people's ideas or think that there's other ways to live and be successful and be happy. So I think that's very relevant right now, Jim. So thank you for that. But Jim, such a great guest. Thank you for coming on the show. We're looking forward to your second album coming out. I know your first one just came out, but we've both listened to it. So everyone else go out there, listen to Jim's album. He says it's on Spotify, and I'm sure there's some other ways to listen to it. And we'll make sure to put a link down there to Jim's album so everybody can listen to it. But
Love and Dreams.
There you go. Really, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's great to catch up, Mr. Stutz. It's been a long time. So thank you for coming on our podcast with us.
Thank you guys for having me, and it's wonderful to catch up with you guys too. I wish you all the best.
Great. Thanks, Jim. Paul, how crazy is it that we got to get our 8th grade teacher on the show and get to listen to his new album and talk to him about it and pick his brain about the details of like him writing it and what he really got or what he was really trying to push out in his message and his story that he was sharing with everyone.
If you would have told me 25 years ago when I was in his class that you and I would do a podcast interview him about his album, I would have started laughing. Yeah, right. That's going to happen. So it's kind of surreal how, things come in full circle.
Yeah, it's pretty it's pretty crazy. I still had trouble like calling him Jim throughout the process, but I'm glad he's doing well. I'm glad he's out there putting out his music and sharing his message, and it seems like to me it's really like therapeutic for him, and really using this as a way to get out those emotions, relive it for himself, right? But process those emotions. And sometimes people don't have those outlets whether it's a creative outlet or physical or just like mental exercises to do that. But in a way, in creating his own outlet, he's sharing that with other people. And he even said it himself, with hopes that maybe they'll connect with a song and go like, man, that happened to me too. And, maybe they can process, something that happened to them in the past, whether it was a tragedy or some hardship that they grew up with. That's a pretty powerful thing.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head, that he's able to express himself by writing and music to get out all these emotions out of him, and hopefully going forward that makes him feel better on the inside, which that's all that counts, right? That you feel better on the inside. That's your success in life if you feel good from the inside. I firmly believe that, and hopefully that's where he's going to. Hopefully he has that right now, some peace from writing this album. I do like that his last song was Second Chance, so he's going on with his life. Yeah, he had these horrible experiences, but hopefully he's learned from it emotionally and physically, and he can learn from it. And he said he did. So great. Good for him.
Yeah. I'm really glad he came on the show and shared his story with us. And, I wish him the best, and, looking forward to that second album coming out. So everybody go out there and, listen to Jim Stutz. What's the title again, Paul? Give it to us.
Love and Dreams.
Love and Dreams by Jim Stutz. All right, Paul, we'll wrap up the show with another segment of Ask Paul Anything. I know you said you had a question come in. Just a reminder to all our listeners out there, continue to send in your questions to actionsandlimits@gmail.com, and your question can be featured on the show. So, Paul, I'm excited. What's this question?
I purposely picked this question because I felt it was appropriate for what we just did our interview on. So this is from Randy in Nevada, and he says, Paul, if you were a teacher, what subject would you teach?
And that is very relevant. And here we go. I'm ready. I'm ready for this one, Paul.
Well, I would like to teach a class in both career development and speech. I don't know if there's a class that can combine both, but that's what I would want to do. I want to teach people how to do interviews. Plus, I want to teach them how to do speaking engagements as well. So I don't know if there's a class that can combine the two, or maybe I can do what, teach this subject, career development, in the morning, and then maybe do speech at night. I don't know, but that would be the realm I would like to take it, because I think I could be passionate about that. Mr. Stutz, here I am telling him Mr. Stutz now. Jim said, you find your passion. And
Sure.
If I was to teach, that would what I would be passionate about in career development and in speech. So that would be my answer.
Sure. What, you combine those together, is that debate?
Maybe. Yeah.
You get up there and you're like, I'm going to argue my case for why I need a raise and why I should have this job. And
I like it.
Right? So there you go. You could be a debate teacher, Paul.
Yeah, exactly. And the interview process of the whole bit. Yeah, I like it.
There you go. Paul, the debate teacher. That'll be your retirement gig.
Yeah.
Well, again, Randy, thank you for sending in your question to the show. And, keep those questions coming, guys. Paul, great guest. Glad we got to see Jim again. It's been a while since I've talked with him, and glad that he's doing well and putting out that album. So, everybody check out Jim's stuff. Great show, Paul.
For Justin Atherton, this is Paul Fortune. We'll see you next week.
All right. See you next Monday. Thank you for listening to the show. Don't miss an episode. Click and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on your favorite podcast platform, and find us on Instagram and Facebook under Actions and Limits to stay updated on all our upcoming content. Continue to email the show at actionsandlimits@gmail.com for our segment Ask Paul Anything. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next week.